down. The final score was 2-1 in Findlay's favor. Chase's star rose higher, and if there were any who did not admit his popularity before the game, there were none after. For at the right time, at the one great absorbing climax, at the moment when eyes flashed, hands clenched, and hearts almost stopped beating, he performed the unexpected feat. The one thing absolutely glorious to the hoping, despairing audience. Drove the ball far over the fence. That hit settled it. Never had there been one like it save Dan Brothers' great and memorable drive of years gone by. Mac threw up his hands and stared in rapture at his star. The crowd carried Chase off the field. When a player becomes the idol of the fans, it meant something. But when a player made fans out of staid business men, and young society men, and girls in school, and women prominent in town and church affairs, then that meant a great deal. It meant money in the box office, support for the team, willing, eager, working baseball champions. And such a wave carried the Findlay team to the top of popularity, with Chase on the very crest. He was the recipient of more presents in the way of suits, hats, shoes, canes, umbrellas than he knew what to do with. He received a beautiful gold watch with his monogram engraved on it. He was asked to luncheon with prominent business men. He was invited everywhere. And last, a photographer lured him into his den. There took his picture, and reproducing it on small buttons, sold them by the hundreds. Every youngster and almost every girl in town proudly wore Chase's picture. He was public property. This latter fact became a source of pain to Chase. One day Mittie Maru, having met Marjory by the river, had enlarged upon this matter of the picture buttons, with the result that he had interesting news for Chase. "She wouldn't have one. What do you think of thet? She said you were conceited to allow 'em sold. Somehow she blamed you for it. An' when I asked her if 'twasn't nice to see all the girls wearin' 'em, what do you think she said? Sickenin'! Thet's what. Sickenin'! Now I'm wise about girls, an' I up an' told her she was a victim of the green eyed monster. Then what do you think she said? 'Mittie Maru, you needn't speak to me ever any more.' Queered myself pluggin' your game along, thet's what I did." Thereafter, whenever Chase saw one of the buttons decorating the front of a schoolgirl's blouse, he had a moment of chagrin, and called himself names for ever going into that picture gallery. And when he saw Marjory, he learned what she thought of the selling of his pictures all over town for 10 cents each. "But, Marjory," said Chase, "even if they do sell so cheap, it's good business. It advertises the team, and I get a percentage." "Every girl in town can have your picture," replied Marjory, severely. Evidently the possibilities of the case weighed more with Marjory than the notoriety. Mac, too, showed concern because of the popularity of his shortstop. More than once he hinted to Chase the necessity of a ball player's duty not to be carried away by praise and entertainment. There would come a time, Mac averred, when he would strike a spell of bad form, when the tide of popular favor would ebb, and then he would wish he had not let himself be made so much of. And one day towards the close of July, Mac sought Chase out in the evening. He seemed eager and excited, yet anxious. He chewed on his cigar stub and talked and held to Chase. "Got a date to night?" he asked for the 20th time. "Yes," Chase said. "I'll let you go in a minute. There's somethin' I want to say. Chase, are you sure you won't go up in the air if I tell you? It's great." "What do you mean?" "Why, I've been a little scairt about all this hobnobbin' and fussin' of yours. You're only a kid, Chase, and maybe only another puff or so will blow you out of sight. Haven't I listened to you always and kept both feet on the ground?" "Sure, Chase, sure you have. I never trained a lad who took to things as you." "You needn't worry about me, Mac. I'm having a great time here. There's no doubt about it. I like everybody. I'm not missing anything. But what they say or think about my playing hasn't anything to do with it, one way or another. On the surface it looks easy, like real play, but you know I've worked and am working to learn the game. I've got to succeed." "Good. That's the spirit. Now listen. Rainey, the manager of Cincinnati, wrote me about you, and today Burke, manager of Detroit, was here in the grandstands watchin' your work. None of us knew till after the game. He sneaked in foxy like. It's just as well, because maybe you'd been nervous. As it was, you put up your usual hard, fast game. He says to me just now, I walked to the station with him, he says, 'That's a fast lad. Can he hit?' And I says, 'Can he? Well, he's been rippin' the boards off the fence all season.' Then he says, 'Send me his battin' average and give me first say on him when the season's over.'" Mac spit out his cigar, moistened his lips, and producing papers from his pocket, went on. "I asked Manning of the Chronicle to make out the averages. Here they are. You're hittin' .398 and leadin' Dude by a mile. It's hard to believe, Chase, but there's the figgers. You keep puttin' the wood on 'em, and besides, you work a good many bases on balls. That tells. Now get this and keep it under your hat. If you can hang on with thet kind of stick work I'll sell you for big money when the season's over. And if you make it an even 400 I'll give you 1/3 of the purchase price. Got thet?" "Do I? Mac, I'll tear the legs off all the third basemen in the league from now on," replied Chase, with fire in his eyes. He saw the tired face of his mother and her toil worn hands, and he saw the pale, thoughtful features of his brother. That afternoon he got 2 triples and a home run out of 5 times at bat. "Shure nothin' can stop him now," choked Matt from the bench. And what spoke well for Chase and his future was his popularity with the team. The course of sprouts had long since been gone through. Poke and Ford were now the butts of the players. Cas adored him. Enoch called him Sonny, now with a fatherly friendliness. The Dude and Havil sought his society, and Benny hung on him like a leech. "Cut out the drinkin' and come with me," Chase had said one evening. And he had taken Benny from the hangers on round the hotel, the young sports who liked to buy drinks, the rich oil men who had nothing but money. Benny was ashamed and backward, but he enjoyed the evening, and Chase took to him again, and came to like him. "How much do you draw, Benny, if you don't mind tellin'?" asked Chase. "$150." "What do you do with it all?" "Blow it in." "Don't you save any?" "How can a man save and skate with thet fly crowd? What doesn't go for booze goes for poker. Sometimes I manage to send a 10 spot home. I send money home every month." "I ought to." Benny bowed his head. "Folks need it?" "Lord! They're poor, sometimes awful poor when the governor is laid up with rheumatiz. There's mother, she's well and strong, but my sister's most always ailin'. I never let myself think of them when I'm sober, and can't when I'm drunk." "Benny, you'd be the best second baseman in this league if you didn't drink. Think of how much you could help your folks, even now, let alone what you might do if you worked up to a bigger job." "I don't care much for the booze. There's always somebody jollyin' me," Benny said. It happened that Chase knew a Molly McCoy, a saucy, sparkling eyed girl who admired Benny and wanted to meet him. So Chase, when he had worn off Benny's rough edges and made him manifest some interest in his appearance, took him to see Molly. The little lady fell in with Chase's deep laid plot, perhaps more from the eternal feminine than from any other reason, and she made her sparkling eyes complete Chase's good beginning. She attached Benny to herself, and he, unable to comprehend, quite overcome, stuttered to Chase about it, and said most foolish and irrelevant things. Wise Chase! He pretended there was nothing remarkable about the matter. To be sure, Molly was simply delightful. Of course, she had wonderful lovely eyes. He took care to hint to Benny that there were any number of young men in town who thought so, and tried to tell Molly so. And vastly Chase said, as if it were a thing Benny did not need to be told, as if it were a simple conclusion, it wouldn't do to drink if any fellow wanted to go with Molly. Benny bought gorgeous neckties regularly after that, looked mysterious when his player friends chaffed him, and wore cool towards his former boon companions. The hotel bar rooms seldom saw him, and it was noticeable that the heated flush faded out of his face. And when some misguided player, hit a ball anywhere in the vicinity of